Hello, here we are again with Mookie Tenembaum. We are exploring, as you know, through these videos, his philosophy, his disillusionism, his nostalgic theory. And we are now uh, proposing a series of longer videos in which we no longer deal with definitions of abstract concepts or such. What we are trying to do is to analyze, of course, from a philosophical point of view, the news as they happen, as they evolve before our eyes. We are now around mid-October 2020, amidst the COVID pandemic, as everyone knows. And we will try to understand today, from a disillusionist point of view, with the author of this philosophical system, of course, what's going on with states, what's going on with national states around the world as they deal with the pandemic.
Well, first of all, let me explain what are illusions. Okay, illusions are in general that we're talking about four categories: states, religions, family, and finally corporations. Basically, all of those are illusions, not in everything. They are made out of real stuff, like a state has a court or customs or just any other building. It has a flag. It has a pole for the flag. Yes. It has uniforms. Yes, very nice uniforms for the army. It has probably an army, and it has the monopoly of power. It has guns. So these are the real part of it. Now, the other part is illusionary. That means that building is customs. It's an illusion. That is a building. Customs is the name we put on it, and people are dressed there in the uniforms. Again, imagine yourself that we all have now an attack of amnesia. All of us. If all of us have an attack of amnesia, when we wake up, the state will not be the state. We will not have states. We will not understand what the flag is. Yes. We will not have a God. We will not have a brother. My brother will not be my brother. The person will be there, but he will not be my brother. So those are illusions. They are mixed. Now, illusions are they have to be needed. You don't have an illusion that is not needed. And when I mean needed, I mean nostalgically needed, because let me remind everybody that in our philosophy, what disillusionism stands for is nostalgia, running away from suffering. That's all we do in life. We are not going anywhere, just coming from. We're just fleeing. And illusions help us in that flight. How they help us? For once, it allows us to sleepwalk during the day. That means I know there is a state. I know I can walk in the street and nobody will shoot me. Nobody will rob me, depending where you are. But mostly, you know, and you know that your house is your house, and nobody will come and take it. Now it's my house. This is what the states is there, and that means that almost everybody believe in that, and that credibility they have is what allows it to exist. The same thing with the religion. The same thing. It has to be, and it has to be effective. It has to have to be effective. And here we have now suddenly we are in the second wave of COVID, not the first one. In the second wave, if one thing we know is that states are not being effective. Besides China, New Zealand, Taiwan, and Uruguay, countries we barely heard about. Besides China, of course, China is a big story. We'll talk about China a little bit later. All the rest of the countries, it's a failure. It's a failure in Germany. It's a failure in Denmark. It's a failure in the US. It's a failure. It's a failure in South America. It's a failure in Central America. It's a failure in the Middle East, Asia. I can go on and on and on. It's a failure, and it's a failed state. Now, listen, states can disappear. Even the Soviet Union disappeared, but immediately after that, the next day, people who were Soviet were Russians. People who lived in Armenia were Armenians. People who lived in Turkmenistan were Turkmens. I mean, it's over. That was enough. There was no situation in which you don't have a state. Even in countries like Somalia, for a while, there were the tribes. You are never without an illusion around you. But now in this case, if these states are gone, if these states start disappearing, what is coming instead of that? Well, that will be for the next week. This week, I will speak about the fourth power. Remember what I said? Yes, there is every state has three branches, three classical. I would say there are four. The first one is the executive branch, president, prime minister. The second one is the legislative branch, parliament, Congress, depending where you are. The third one is the judiciary branch, which is judges, Supreme Courts, blah, blah. And there is a fourth one, and people say the press. No, the press is not part of it. The press is not part of the government, of the illusion. The press is very different. It is the central bank, or in America, the Fed. Those who are in charge of what used to be the printing machine, yes, to print the local currency, the US dollars, euros, yens, yuans, Swiss francs, and I can continue to enumerate the currencies, and they are independent. The whole idea is that each branch is independent from the other, and in that balance, yes, using that balance, that allows a country to be fair, to be just, whatever. Now, as I said, democracy is not equipped to deal with pandemics. I know it sounds terrible, but it's the truth. Who is the only country who really dealt with the pandemic on a massive scale? China. How? Not being democratic, really. You know, we all know it's an Orwellian state, China. It's a very tough state. It has no independent nothing, but it has an independent central bank. Now, this is an issue. That's the reason. What I want to talk is about that branch in this case. First of all, what is your opinion about what I said until now, Florencio?
I would like to go back to the first thing you said, but I think we can connect it with this latest, which is there are things as they are, and they are things standing for something they are not. In your example, we had flags, which of course they are fabrics. We had uniforms, which of course are there, but they also stand for our belief in the state. And I think what we have seen through the pandemic is this belief sort of fading down. I remember at the beginning, we used to wave the flags, we used to sing anthems, we used to applaud people in uniform. The uniforms are still there, the anthems are still there, the flags are still there. We are not waving them anymore. We are not singing them anymore. We are not applauding before them anymore. But with this last thing you say, I think what remains standing are bills, are coins. We are still giving them credit. They are probably the last symbols of the states that are still working as they used to work in the beginning. So I think there's something there in this distinction between actual things and what things stand for, what they represent. And I also wanted to ask you, when you speak about the inability of democratic states to deal with the pandemic, if we are not seeing something that has to do simply with time, with rhythm, with how slow this division between branches makes every attempt at dealing with the pandemic. And so the judiciary interferes with what the executive branch has said, and then this goes back to Congress, and Congress or a commission in Congress approves or disapproves. This is simply too slow, too cumbersome when it comes to dealing with the outbreak of a virus. But I want to know now if you see an exception when it comes to central banks in this respect, because maybe bills and coins are still trustworthy because, as you say, the central bank is independent from all this sort of bureaucratic entanglement.
The central bank is, in fact, independent because they are in charge of currency, and currency has not only a local value, it has an international value. So any state that their central bank is not independent, that is being manipulating currencies, and in fact the US has laws that prevents other countries from manipulate their currency and get away with it. That's the reason it's so important. Even China has an independent central bank. It's crucial, and that probably proved at this point to be the only wise thing state has been doing in the last or sorry, the democracy, how it's built. It is the last. It's the Alamo. Yes, it is the last place where they will defend their currency. I want to go also before that, and you just mentioned it, and I want to give some examples of states of that rhythm that you rightly put it, that it takes time to make decisions in a democracy. Yes, when there is a war, immediately all the powers go back to the executive branch. Now this is a war-like situation. Just the enemy is not somebody you can negotiate with. Although I can tell you that from what I hear from people, the way they talk about it, they think they can negotiate with the virus. So I'll give you some examples. The state of Israel. Yesterday, the Prime Minister Netanyahu came out and begged people not to violate the rules of confinement, which they were going to violate anyway, because and he cannot do anything about it. You see, the guns that the state of Israel has will never be used against its own population. Will not happen, ever. This is not going to happen. So the guns are worthless. Now, if there are no guns and there is no authority and everybody does whatever they want, clearly the state is walking into a failed state. We used to say that about Somalia, yes, but suddenly not only Israel, a judge in Berlin yesterday changed a very mild laws that they made that to close bars at 11 p.m. And this is only the beginning. And on the other hand, and this is something I want to clear before we go to the central banks, there is an issue of criminal investigations by judges or by committees that are looming over every politician in the world. So that issue, that commission are conditioning politicians, and they try now to make everybody else being they start eating each other, the politicians, and the branches are fighting even more. It's even worse because they are afraid to act, because what they have is, I don't want to end up in prison, or worse in some countries. Yes. So now comes everything. So why am I saying that the Alamo is the central bank? Why is this the last place? The answer is because the central bank now is printing all the money. They say whatever it takes. Central banks of the United States, the Fed, the central bank in Europe, and the central bank in Japan, and several others, including the UK, they say we will print all the money that will be needed to avoid a recession. Now, they need to print such a huge amount of money because a third of the economy is dead. Anything that has to do with tourism, anything that has to do with restaurants, anything that has to do with bars, it's dead. It's dead, and it may not ever get back unless there is a miraculous vaccine. And in that situation, the central bank can continue to print, and they will print whatever it takes. They will use as much as they can, and without the fear of this becoming an economic problem, a financial problem. Let me explain what happened before that. Every time there was an economic crisis, some of the banks were tempted to print money, but they were not printing money because they knew that others will not print. If the others will not print, my currency will be devaluated. If it will be devaluated, that means it will be worth less. Anything I import into the country will be more expensive. If I travel somewhere as a tourist, it's going to be very expensive for me. So what happens is that I cannot devaluate my currency, and also the other government will not like you to devaluate so you can export. So everything was done in a certain balance. Everybody was afraid of the other one. And interest rates were normally going together. So if the Americans raise their interest rate, everybody raised their interest rate. If the Americans lower their interest rate, everybody lowered their interest rate. But that was done because of in a responsive way, not really as a group. It wasn't make a decision. Now it looks like, and I am not saying there is a decision, we all print. And when everybody prints, then there is no devaluation. Then there is not even inflation. Then there is not even recession. They will print as much money as they take. That means that third of people that may not ever get a job back will be supported, will be paid, will be it's called furlough in some countries, in other countries that has it's in the form of subsidies. They will get all the money they will need until this issue is solved by a vaccine, which at this point, how it looks now, it's really far away. Because a vaccine that for example, I will give you one example. Let's say the vaccine gives you 50% immunity. That doesn't mean that half of your body is going to be immune. Yes, 50% immunity means that for every 2 people who get the vaccine, one will be immune, and the other one will continue to be able to get sick if he gets infected, if there is contagion. Yes. So when you have that 50% doesn't solve anything, because what they need really is everybody back walking into the past, continuing with their older life, the new normal, which is of course an oxymoron, because it's either new or is normal. What do you think, Florencio?
I think it's time for us to go already. We have exceeded our usual time, but I'm keen to know how this will develop, because I know you have not only a description of what is happening now, as you have shared with us, but also predictions for the near future. So I think we'll have to deal with that in our next weekly news video, right?
The next week we'll talk about how this disintegration, the disappearance of the illusions, what will come instead of it? What will have after that? And that we'll talk next week. Yes.
Interesting. See you. Thank you.
If you enjoyed the video, please like it, comment, and subscribe.